All right, so as we hit the road with this real video, this 2015 Audi A3 is a slight departure. Well, not a slight, it is a departure from the previous generation Audi A3s out on the market. Previously, you would have had the option of only a hatchback. Now in this new generation for 2015, what you have is a vehicle that has 4 doors and really fits the styling of the redesigned A4, A5, and All-Road that we saw several years ago come onto the market. In fact, we have a few videos on those cars, including the S5 out on our YouTube and the All-Road, of course. So when you look at the A3, you might be asking yourself as we go around the outside, what is different about this A3 sedan from the A4? Well, the biggest difference is that it is a slightly more compact vehicle. Now, that doesn't mean that it has any less performance or the driving characteristics that you would expect from Audi. No, what it means is that there is definitely a reduction in size for a more compact driving experience, easier to park, so on and so forth. And the price has been slightly reduced as well for the A3 market. So what is this vehicle really going to compete with? Well, it's going to be your Mercedes CLA. It's going to be your BMW 320, kind of in that range, or even you could even kind of look at the X1 kind of platform, even though that's really more of a crossover, and this is no longer a hatchback like the X1, but it's trying to fit that smaller 4-door sedan. You could also compare this to things like the Buick Regal, and if you were going to the Cadillac, the ATS, especially the ATS with the all-wheel drive. Now, this vehicle from Audi is a vehicle that's going to be more familiar in format to Europeans, because it's definitely a vehicle that you would have seen on European roads in this kind of format more than you would have here. The A3 hatchback that we used to see was an okay car, but it got dinged quite a bit for having a cheap interior and kind of didn't quite meet that Audi perspective. Now, what's interesting is that they kept that older A3 body style for the Audi e-tron, the electric version of the vehicle, but I bet we're going to see that change as we go into 2016 model years. But for 2015 here, what we have is a nice compact 4-door sedan, and it's going to feel compact. It's a vehicle that if you're 6 foot and above, you're going to have a little bit more difficulty getting into the front seats, and definitely your rear seat passengers are going to notice when someone like myself, 6 foot tall, is driving the vehicle, because there is going to be a lot less room back between the rear seat and where your knees can go between the rear seat and the front of the rear, well, the rear of the, well, you know what I'm saying. Basically, your knees are going to hit the driver's seat. So what we're trying to say here is that this is a vehicle that is not necessarily meant for 4-seat comfort, or even in a pinch 5 passengers in total complete comfort. It's really a driver's car that's meant for your front seat passenger to ride along with you quite a bit, and then you have the back seat for when you need it in a pinch. This isn't a vehicle that you're going to want to compare to something like the A6, or even really an A4 that has quite a bit more room in the back seat. Remember that this vehicle is basically about 91% of the A4 in its configuration, and it looks it too. It looks like a baby A4, and it's got great lines, as you can see from our earlier outside pictures. Now, the thing that I like about this vehicle is that they didn't sacrifice performance or all-wheel drive capability in the option set. Sure, you can get a front-wheel drive, and you can get it in a manual transmission with a 1.8 liter engine, but we have here what is really the top of the line in terms of performance and capability, with the 2-liter turbocharged engine and the Quattro all-wheel drive that Audi is really known for. We also have the Tiptronic S shifter here, so that you have the drive, the sport mode that most Audi lovers are going to, that have driven Audi in the last couple years, are going to be familiar with. And then you can click it over to the manual mode, where you can shift into the gears. It is a 6-speed automatic transmission, and it is quite flexible and shifts very crisply for the type of vehicle that it is. Its 0 to 60 is going to be right about 5.8 seconds in ideal conditions, and we'll see a little bit less than that here in Colorado given the altitude and all of that, although not too much less because it is, you know, forced induction there with the turbo. It is a great handling vehicle. I do notice that there are some things about the way this car drives that I want to make sure that consumers know when they're comparing it to other vehicles like BMWs, Mercedes, and so on and so forth. Of the vehicles that are out on the market, you would also compare this to the Lexus IS 350, especially in this trim level with the 2-liter engine. It would definitely compared to the IS 350, and if you had the 1.8 liter, you would compare it more to the IS 250. From a performance and handling perspective, my opinion is that this Audi is really in the performance realm of being that IS 350 in terms of being really designed for driving and the characteristics in the corners and then straight line speed. I believe that the technology that is in this Audi with the advanced MMI system, you have handwriting recognition here on the actual dial for the MMI system, the entertainment system, navigation's up in here, you have Bluetooth, and remember you have Wi-Fi hotspot in these Audis now pretty much when you get the upper end packages of the MMI system. So that is really nice and something that a lot of the competition is not offering in this size of car. Now you can see we're in drive mode and it really does get up and go. Your 0 to 60 time being about 5.8 seconds, and if you put it in sport mode, you're going to get a much more aggressive shift and throttle response out of this vehicle, and it has no trouble getting up to the upper 80, 90, and 100 range, and it feels stable as you would expect an Audi. I still, through the corners, I think you're going to find this most comparative to the BMW and IS Lexus as opposed to the Mercedes. Really phenomenal driver controls like the anti-skid control, the traction control, and you can really feel that Quattro system that we have in this 2-liter working for you along with those driver aid systems. Now they are pretty aggressive. You can definitely feel the aid systems kicking in, and you can feel the car pulling itself back into the correct line or into control when you're driving it, and it depends on what kind of driver you are, what kind of training you have, whether you like that or not. I actually like to turn the systems off in this car because I really do like the way it drives. I like the way it pivots, and having the driving experience that I have, it is a fun car to drive where you don't have the computer intervening. But know that those systems are there to help you in an inclement weather or with less experienced drivers or your teenagers that you may have in your family, that they will be safe and controlled in this car even if they get a little wild. So it will pull you back in. And a perfect example of that is coming up to this really sharp left-hand corner, and if I just jerk the wheel, you can see that I didn't move the wheel or touch the brakes or anything, and it held me right around that corner. Sure, were the tires squealing and were they scrabbling? Yes, but the driver aid system basically said, oh crap, this car is out of control, and it braked where it needed to around the corners to keep it in line. And in most cars with the driver aid system turned off, if I had done that same maneuver, this car would have gone around in circles and spun out because of the centrifugal force of jerking the wheel the way that I did. So you can tell that there's a lot of thought put into the driving experience of this car and the safety features, and indeed it has quite a bit of power in this 2-liter turbo. But there are a couple places where it doesn't present itself as well from a driving perspective, like this. If I get on the gas, I'm on the floor, now it gets going, and you can see that it has quite a bit of power. We can get right up to 60 miles an hour there, 59 actually, and it was a quick trip, that 5.8 seconds, we're going to see somewhere in there here in Colorado. With the altitude, you may see a little bit different, and not being in the specific sport modes and stuff like that, because I have it in regular drive. But the thing that I wanted to point out is the delay in acceleration that you have with the Audi turbos. And I noticed this in the all-road that we had and in the S5, but not so much. The S5 really does get up and move because it's got so much power. But I have driven the A4s where we've seen similar types of performance off the line, where, and the VWs kind of get plagued with this as well, where you stand on it and then it spools up and it starts to go. And it's something you do need to get used to, because if you try to jump out in traffic across a road, across a junction and an intersection, and you're not prepared for that slight delay, your timing's going to be thrown off. And it definitely is something that I notice in these Audis, that when you put it in sport mode, you get a quicker response, because you've got a different accelerator response curve, and you have a different shift point on the automatic transmission. And there's no doubt that these vehicles are quick, but that delay in the spooling of the turbo and the application of the power to the road through the all-wheel drive system is noticeable, and it's more noticeable than I would have expected in 2015. However, the car drives fantastic. It's got a good suspension. It's a little loud on the NVH, so when you're driving along and we're going across these kind of country roads out here, these one-lane roads out here near Real Auto Ranch, when you're on smooth, fresh black top like we are right now, it's not too bad. But when you're at 80, 85 out on the freeway, and you go from concrete to blacktop to concrete, or you're over a grooved surface, you will notice more greenhouse noise, where the Dynamat doesn't seem to be reducing the noise around the cabin as much as you'd expect. And some of that is transference of noise up through the tires. But I don't think it is. I think you would really have to drive the competition, your CLA, your 3 Series, your Cadillac ATS, your Infiniti G Series, or now Q, actually, I should say, because they have gone up to the new Q50. So you'd want to look at those. You'd want to look at your Acura TSX and that kind of range to see if you can tell the noise difference and if it makes a difference to you. One of the things that I would say about this Audi A3 from a small luxury entry-level sedan is that it's going to run the gamut of pricing. We're right about $36,500 is tested here, and that is still pretty expensive for what you're getting size-wise in this car, but not necessarily expensive for what you're getting technology-wise, like with the disappearing MMI system here, and the navigation, the performance that you're getting, and the fuel economy. I mean, you're getting 24 miles per gallon in town, 33 out on the highway, with a combined 27 miles per gallon, which is just not bad for a vehicle that gives you 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds, and with all the technology. So it really is quite an impressive vehicle. So there's a couple more things that I wanted to point out about our Audi A3 here as we're looking at the detail of this vehicle. So when you're 6 foot like I am, and you have passengers that are over 6 foot and are good sized people, the thing that you're going to notice when they get in and out of this car is the size and the ability to really get into it. It is a low slung car, and the door openings are not all that good, if you can see here, for the larger person. So someone like my father, who's disabled and a larger person, has trouble squatting down into this car because the front seat area is smaller than you might expect, and then you have the height of the pillars here. Notice we have good headroom, but you are going to want to test fit your people that are going to be in this car when you go to look at it. And the back seat room, the same. Even my 5'2" mother has trouble sitting behind my 6'2" father in this car if the front seat is not pulled up to where there's less room for his knees at the dashboard. And you can see where I'm driving, there really is not a lot of room for someone to sit behind me comfortably of any size unless they are a child. So, you know, those are the things that you're going to want to consider there. Also note that there are no paddle shifters in this vehicle. You would have to shift down here with the Shiftronic down on the gear lever. And that is just a little nit, but it is a departure from some of the other Audi vehicles that you'll find because it is at that lower tier. Again, your MMI system's not going to be as big, but it does have that nifty stowaway feature, which is actually kind of nice if you have a CD play or you're on a podcast or something and you don't really need to look at the MMI system. So at night that can be kind of nice to keep the glare on your eyes down and to keep that kind of fatigue. And it is just a slick, thin system. It's one of the thinnest MMIs that you'll find in a vehicle in this class or higher. Also, you have this lovely sunroof here that will open. It'll slide back and give you that full air into the vehicle. You do have auto headlights on this vehicle, which is also very nice, and you're going to have a full complement of steering wheel controls. Another nit though for you is if I shift it into reverse here, you'll notice nothing changes up on the MMI system. A rear backup camera is not available in this A3 and in the packages that we've seen. And at $36,500, you're going to find that other vehicles that are just as well equipped and maybe even bigger, if you're looking for a bigger vehicle, would have that rear backup camera. In fact, vehicles like the Kia Forte, which are hard to compare to something like this Audi A3, but have become very luxurious, and even the Hyundai Elantra, which has become very luxurious, would have a rear backup camera. You're also going to find that rear backup camera in other vehicles like in the Subaru brand and so on and so forth, Toyota and so on, even in a very luxurious Camry. Now, you can't really compare those to the Audi brand because of the driver experience and the handling and the performance, but the Cadillac ATS had a rear backup camera as well, and it's going to be on this smaller format side of a sedan, and it's going to have some pretty impressive performance and all-wheel drive capabilities as well. So definitely want to shop the competition. Some other features that I do want to make sure I point out is that it does have an electronic parking brake and heated seats, a 3-setting heated seat on here, and those are all nice. The thing it doesn't have, going back to kind of this give and take, is that you do not have the push button start or the touch entry on this vehicle or an auto start. So you're going to want to weigh these features depending on what you're looking for in a vehicle. But all in all, the Audi A3 is a great driving vehicle, and for people who love to drive and who need an all-wheel drive vehicle, it's hard to beat that Audi technology because they really have been pioneers like Subaru. So I would definitely give the vehicle a chance. Go out and drive it, see if you like it, and compare it to other vehicles that you also like and see which one in a comparison test will win. We'll have the real wrap-up coming up next, so stay tuned. All right, so the main point of our real wrap-up is to give you the quick details that you need to consider after all of these details. So what is the A3? It's about 91% smaller than the, it's about 91% of the size of an A4. It is going to look like an A4, but it's just going to be slightly shrunk. That means that you don't have quite the interior capacity for legroom and shoulder and hip room that you would have, or rear seat room in the A4, but you still have a decent trunk that carries quite a bit in this A3. You also have the neat MMI system. Your price tag, MSRP, as tested in this vehicle, is going to be $36,645, and that does include the $800+ destination fee. You're going to see about 24 miles per gallon in town and 33 miles per gallon out on the highway, with an EPA estimated combined rating of 27 miles per gallon, and that is pretty good for the 5.8 0 to 60 time that we have in this 2.0 liter all-wheel drive or quattro Audi A3. Of course, you have these leather tight seating surfaces. You don't have a heated steering wheel, but you do have heated front seats in this, not heated rear seats. And you do have, as I've mentioned several times in this package, the navigation and the disappearing MMI system, all which go together to make a pretty neat package in this A3. It is a vehicle that is worth a look for sure. And if I were driving and commuting quite a bit with just me in the car, like I used to several years ago, where I was doing, 60 to 70 miles a day or more, actually it was more like 90, that kind of hour and a half each way in the car, this would be a lovely commuter car, the same way that I would think of a 3 Series or some of the other vehicles I've mentioned, a Cadillac ATS, things where you might have to carry 4 people or 5 in a pinch on occasion, but on the whole, you're going to be driving the car mainly yourself and commuting around. So that's the real video, the real review right here from Real Auto Ranch. I'm Jonathan McGrew. I hope you come back for more reviews, and stay tuned for the next generation of Real Auto Reports, where we go more in depth about cars and talk about them in a more talk show format, so that we can share with you our opinions on a wide variety of car topics. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you down the road.